everyone, and welcome back. Today I want to talk to you about the top 5 audiobooks of 2024. These books were not 2024 releases, they're just books that I listened to in 2024. However, whenever I'm going to go on a road trip or whenever I have to do a mundane task and I want to listen to an audiobook that will keep my brain entertained and I don't just kind of tune it out, then this would be 5 books that I would recommend you to get in audio, and I think that your brain will be as entertained as mine was. However, we all know that reading is subjective, so it may not be for everyone, but here are 5 ideas of audiobooks that you should try to listen to, and hopefully you'll enjoy them as much as I did. The first one is Brit Marie Was Here by Fredrik Backman. I love Fredrik Backman because he is the kind of author that writes a very compelling and very touching story with a lot of laugh out loud moments, a lot of funny characters, and a lot of characters that feel so very real. So much so that this book, Brit Marie, like I know a person like Brit Marie in my head, like the way that she is very outspoken, the way that she's funny, the way she says things. I can totally picture a person in my life that definitely describes Brit Marie. But let me tell you the story of Brit Marie. She's in her 60s and she devoted her entire life to her family, to press her husband's clothes, to entertain his business partners, to keep the house. The neatest house in the entire world was her house. Everything was organized. Everything was and there's a few references to even cleaning products that she couldn't stay away from. However, guess what? One day the husband leaves her and she finds herself with no purpose in life, because her entire purpose in life was taking care of this family and these kids that were from his previous marriage, and now she has nobody. And she starts to realize that she still has dreams, she still has things she wants to do as a woman, as a person, and that she feels like will be fulfilling, but she's not sure how to get there. So she goes and tries to look for a job in her 60s, and trying to get a job with no experience because you spent your entire life tending to your family must be one of the hardest things to do later on in life. However, she goes into these interviews with the most positive outlook, like, I can get this job, I can, I sit every morning and I do my puzzles and I can't even think crosswords and I can get it done. And like, she says the kind of thing that you're like, nobody would say that. I know somebody who would say that. Like, she's so real. She's so open about who she is, and that sometimes it bothers people. And I feel like by the end of the book, there's a lot of things that will happen, a lot of heartwarming moments. She's gonna meet all these characters and all these imperfect people in a small town where she's sent to go to work, and then she's reminded what she needs to do to feel her to fulfill her life and to feel like the kind of woman she wants to be. And I feel like it has a lot of social commentary that is really important today, without Fredrik Backman taking one side or the other side or the middle side. He's just talking about things that happen, and now you with your own brain can make the decision, is this fair? Is this where we should be? Is this something I want for my life? Or is this how somebody else in my life feels? Such an eye-opening book, so funny. The first few chapters, I was telling Deborah, who's the one that recommended to me, well, she did a video, not to me particularly, but I was telling her that I was laughing out loud for the first few chapters until we got to the job agency place, and Brit Marie told this lady truthfully why she was looking for a job, and then I started crying my eyes out. Like, I was listening to this audiobook doing chores in the farm, and then if somebody was looking at me laughing and then crying, but seriously ugly crying, because this characters feel so real. It may not be the kind of book that you read every day, but give it a chance. I think you're gonna enjoy it. The next book is the first book on the Shadow and Bone. I think it's a trilogy, but I've only read the first book, and that's the one I'm gonna recommend because I felt like the audiobook added so much to the story that it felt like I was watching a movie. And I feel like most of these recommendations, that's what happens, and that's why I think they're 5-star audiobooks. Now, the synopsis on Goodreads sounds completely different. I'm just going to give you the synopsis of what makes sense in my head. Now, this is the story of a couple of friends that grow up in a place for kids with no parents, okay? There's a lot more to that. Then eventually she is very much a regular person. There's nothing special about her, and at the time there were some people that had some special powers, and they were recruited to different things that they could do to serve their country wherever they live. Let's leave it at that. Now eventually, now the other friend, he is really good at finding things, so he's recruited into the army, and she ends up making maps. Now that they're adults, they still see each other, they still have some kind of relationship, but it's almost like there's a disconnect between them. However, eventually something happens, and she does something that is a power that everyone wants, which is kind of a dangerous thing to have, because some people will want to kill you and some other people will want to use you. Now, she's recruited, she's taken into this place, she's separated from this guy, and then we'll spend the rest of the book figuring out, is that where she should be, or should she go back, and what happened in between. Now, there's a lot of magic and there's a lot of different things that I didn't think it was really hard to understand. This is a YA book, but I have to say that the audiobook is what made it extra special, and I was listening to it every night for about an hour before I went to bed, and I was putting it in my CD player in a boombox because I got it from the library, and I got my entire family engaged in this story. The narration is impeccable. You could tell, the different characters, and it was just so easy to follow, and that made it so much more special. So I'm looking forward to finish the trilogy, but even though it's a YA, if you want to dip your toes in some kind of fantasy, I think this one is not as hard. Now, there is some kind of body of water full of monsters, but that ties to the story and why she's so important. So it definitely was something that I felt like it made me feel like I could understand, because it wasn't such a complicated kind of fantasy world. Now, the next one is The Recipient by Audrey J. Cole, and this one I found on a whim looking for a good audiobook to do chores around the farm. And I think that if I would only read with my eyes, I don't think I would have enjoyed it as much as I did by listening to the audiobook. Now, this is a story of, or it opens with this man killing a woman. And you don't know who he is, you don't know who she is, but you know that they're in this, I think they're in this hotel, she's grabbing some ice, and there's a little bit of an exchange. It sounds such a plausible thing that could happen, the kind of person you can meet in any hotel, and it was really scary. And they have different narrators for different characters, so it made it kind of a movie, almost like a Criminal Mind flashbacks, or that kind of thing they introduce as they're putting the case together, that I really enjoyed. Now, eventually the detective goes there, he looks at the murder scene, and he's like, I know who did it. I know who did it. But the problem is that person is dead, because he arrested that person and was put to death a year prior to this happening. Then we read about this other person who is a woman that is in a marriage. Her husband had a stroke and he needed a brain transplant, which I don't know if that's a real thing. Apparently he needed this brain transplant, or part of his brain needed a transplant, so he gets it. And guess who donated the organ? Yes, that guy that was sentenced to death. So we spent the rest of the book trying to figure out if something was passed on this very successful guy and now the recipient of that organ, or if it's something completely different, a lot darker and crazy. And I thought that the twist at the end was amazing. Now this book, if I only had to read it with my eyes, as I mentioned before, it probably wouldn't be a 5-star, but the narration made it so such a fun experience that I'm looking forward to continue to read it, to continue to read the series, because I think there's about 2 or 3 more books out, and hopefully with the same kind of narration that keeps me engaged. The next one is Frozen River by Ariel Lahone, and this is a mystery. This is a historical fiction mystery, but it's more of a mystery than anything, and it did something to my brain that I just could not put this book down. I don't remember, it's not here, but I don't remember. I think it's about 500 pages or something like that, and it felt like 150 pages. That's how, you know, it felt, because it was such a, even though there's a lot of things that happen, everything ties to something else, and so it makes it so engaging that all I wanted to do was come back to my book every single day and even skip some activities so just I could stay in and read. Now this story, or this book, opens with this man that was found dead in the frozen river, and this takes place in the 1789 in Maine. So there's a bunch of guys that have to go and try to get the body out of the river. I cannot even imagine how that back then they were doing all that, but I guess it was a lot of manpower. They take it to this one place and they ask their local midwife to come and determine the cause of death. Now, a midwife at the time was the kind of person that knew everyone's business, and she kept a diary. Even though it was not common for a woman to know how to write and how to read, she was taught this along with how to be a midwife, and she used that to keep track of everything that happened in that town, every death, every birth, every crime, everything that happened. She had it documented there. And in one of her entries, she finds that the guy that's now dead was with another very prominent person in their town, accused of raping a woman that she helped after the rape. So she believes this woman, she believes that they did it. She knew that somebody raped her because of how she found her, and she is the local pastor's wife. Later on, the local physician, which is a man and he's a physician, tells everyone that the cause of death of this man was drowning, that nothing happened to him. So Martha, our midwife, will spend the rest of her time trying to prove him wrong and explain why this is not natural causes. He was murdered. It's such an engaging book. Oh my gosh, I cannot even explain how much you want to know who did it, and you think you know, and then it goes a different direction, and then you suspect somebody else and it goes into a different direction. You will go through births and deaths and trial and judges and a lot of social commentary. Like, you know, women at the time were considered second-class citizen, but not to her husband, not to Martha's husband, who was the sweetest guy, who believed in her, who wanted to do better, who treated her like an equal, and really believed in everything that she was doing and supported her throughout all these trials. And actually this man questioning if she was telling the truth or not. At the end, whoever is behind this whole thing, you would not believe it. I still have people that come to the library and they're like, can you still believe that did it? Like, we still talk about this guy. I still remember his name. These people still remember his name. It was a memorable book, and I definitely recommend it to anybody, especially if you like mysteries, but you also enjoy a lot of well-developed characters. I think Frozen River, it's going to be a perfect book, and the audiobook adds to it. It's also like, it's almost like she's telling you the story and you're just listening from Martha herself and her feelings and her thoughts and everything. Definitely recommend it. Now, the next one is The Island by Adrian McKinty, and this is an audiobook that you have to listen to because it has a full cast, and it's such a action-packed story that I think it makes it extra special. Now, I just read the book with my eyes, and then I got the audiobook because I learned that that's what it was, and I loved it even more. Now, this is a story of a couple. They just got married. This is his second marriage. He lost his wife and he has 2 kids. Now, he has a work conference that I believe is in Australia, and he decides to take his entire family to make it kind of a connection, or a kind of try to connect wife to the kids who absolutely hate her because she's younger and because they don't think she's the perfect partner for their dad. So there are these hurt kids and this broken relationship that they're trying to fix. So they get there, they do a few things, but nothing is working. Eventually the kids say they want to go see koalas, and somebody tells them that there's this island where they can go and see koalas. However, they get a lot of don't do this, don't do that, go at this time. You know, they get a lot of warnings about this island, but they would surely see koalas. So they get there and something happens, okay? And if you watch any of the interviews on how this book came about, you're just gonna laugh. But something happens really serious in this book, and now they can't leave the island because there's a bunch of weirdos that won't allow them to leave, and they're crazy. Like, you don't know who's gonna be alive by the end of this book. Definitely an edge of your seat kind of thriller. I really enjoyed it, and I think the audiobook is amazing. So those are my top 5 audiobooks for 2024 that I truly enjoy and I recommend. If you have any audiobook that you truly enjoyed, that it has a full cast or it's really engaging, I would love for you to leave it in the comments down below. If you're new here, please remember to subscribe, like this video, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Bye, guys.